You know how some episodes of a program you either really love or really hate and they're easy to review? Yeah, this isn't going to be one of those. Greetings and welcome once again to Roman of the Empire. I'm your host, Roman. Today we're going to talk about The Last of Us Episode 3, Long Time. All right. This is the episode that is going to get a lot of people really riled up. There were a lot of themes in this episode that some people are going to find uncool. I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective. What I'm looking at is in a show about the post-apocalypse, in 120 or an hour and 20 minute episode, that freaked me out when I saw it. I was like, oh, good. Whoa, long. You got probably about maybe 20 minutes of things that actually move the story forward. And that's what you need to look at in a program like this, which half your audience hated when it started because it's not the game. It's not doing what the people in the game did. That's causing you some problems anyway. And then you go with an episode like this and go pretty far off the reservation. Now, a lot of your audience is watching this show, post-apocalypse survival, end of the world, humanity trying to rebuild despite, what's going on. This is, I think, a know your audience show. I'm gonna talk about the episode, and then I do want you to hang on. Please ride this out with me, because when we get to the end of the summary, and I have 8 pages of notes. I'm not going to talk about 8 pages of stuff though, because the middle section of the show, the vast majority of the middle section of the show, just simply wasn't necessary. It didn't move the story forward, which is what I was saying. So. Like I said, hang out with me to the end of this, and then I want to talk about more in depth the specific things in this episode. So don't freak out, all right? Just stay with me. Stay with Roman of the Empire. We're friends. And if you I'm curious to see what your comments are about this episode, without going off the reservation, because you got to look at it for what it is. And like I said, we'll get into that at the end of this. So episode opens. This is basically right after, Tessa's sacrifice. She blew herself up after being infected, and the Capitol's getting overrun, and she blew herself up to try to save Joel and Ellie. She was going to die anyway. Remember, she was going to become a mushroom thing. So now Joel and Ellie are on the road, and Ellie asks again for Tessa's gun or a gun, and Joel's like, no. And we have another conversation here where Ellie isn't particularly likable. So as they're walking, she's asking about a scar he has, and someone shot at him and missed, and did he get the other guy? And he's like, no, I missed. It happens more than you think. And she's like, do you just suck at shooting or at life? Again, elements that don't make this character particularly endearing. It's just, it is, kind of what it is. So we go to Joel's, they're on the move. Also, so as it opens up, Ellie does have a good conversation with Joel, brief as it might be. She points out that both he and Tess made a choice to go on this journey. And despite what's happened, Ellie, it's not her fault, and she doesn't want to be blamed for Tessa's death by Joel. And Joel grudgingly acknowledges that, and that was good. That was good. So now he's got about 5 miles. They need to trek to get to a convenience store, which is where Joel has stashed some supplies. And we get in there, And this is a weird kind of deal. So he's digging around. He can't quite remember where he put his stuff. Ellie's off exploring the store, which I immediately rose hackles up for me. It's like, whoa, no, you haven't been to this place in a couple of years. You don't know what's in here. So she's mucking around. She finds a trap door, opens the trap door. I'm like, what is she doing? And I'm thinking, you've never seen a horror movie, but she probably has never seen a horror movie. But she does live in this world. And it leads down to a sub-basement. So she goes down there and she's just kind of poking around and she hears the chitter-chatter of one of the critters. And there's one of them that's been crushed underneath some debris. So it's not moving anywhere. So she pulls out her knife and she approaches the critter. And this is just a creepy scene, bizarre scene. She slices its head open with her knife and it doesn't feel any pain because they don't do that. And then just in I don't know if it was rage, I don't know what it was. Then she stabs it in the head, killing it. Okay, that's fine. I get that. I mean, it wasn't going anywhere, but maybe she's wanted to experience what it was like to kill one of the things. But so she goes back upstairs. Joel is stashing the machine gun that he took from the soldier who he beat to death. She gets freaked out by this. He's like, look, there's not a lot of ammunition out there for this type of gun. So, just settle down, kid. And now they continue walking along the road. I like this part of the show. So I can say that very safely. I like this part of the show. As they're walking in the countryside in the distance, there's a crashed passenger plane. Ellie marvels at this. She's like, did you ever fly? And he's like, yeah, it wasn't really glorious. She's like, are you kidding? It's like magic. And to her, I mean, this is a world she's never known. It is like magic. Now, this is another good part. She's asking Joel, she asks a lot of questions about how did it all start? He's like, didn't you go to school? Remember, she had that little snipey comment with him last time. And she's like, yeah, but these are the same shitty schools that couldn't prevent the pandemic. All right. So he talks about what he assumes. This is the popular theory because, who's left doesn't fully know what happened. That the cordyceps mutated and ended up in the food supply. And this is what we got from that second episode where the lady in Malaysia was talking about it was a flour factory and this was the perfect place for it to grow. And so it got into a basic food ingredient like flour or sugar, and then it was out there. On Friday the infection started, but Monday the world was over. And so we do get that from him to her. Now as they're on the path, Joel wants to get off the path. And she's like, why? He's like, I just want to go around. There's something I don't want you to see. She's like, is it dangerous? He's like, no. And she's like, well, you should have said it was. And then, okay, now she's being annoying again. All right. And they get up there, and what they find is a mass grave. And what the government did, what Joel explains, is that they would round up the survivors, and they were taking them to the quarantine zones, the QZs, if they had room. If they didn't, you get the mass grave. And Ellie asks why they didn't just let the people go. And Joel's like, well, because the dead can't get infected. It's a cold, pragmatic answer. Governments do bad things sometimes. And that's kind of the gist of it. They were trying to contain the spread of this thing, but they firebomb cities to do it. So taking out some survivors probably wasn't too far out of the wheelhouse at that point, although the soldiers themselves probably had some qualms about it. I guess we don't know the answer to that. As we're looking at the grave, though, we kind of narrow in on a skull and what's left of a dress and a blanket, and now we're back in time again. And we see these people when they're alive. It's a lady and her baby, and they're getting on a truck. They're getting ready to be taken off to the QZ. No, they are not. So now we're now in 2003. We're back in time, and we go to a survival room. I don't want to call it a panic room because that's not what it is, clearly. And there's a man watching on computer screens about what's going on outside, and there are people in his house above, and he hears the foot creaks. And he's got his gun, and then he hears the soldiers say the house is clear, and they leave. And he's like, and I'm going to read the line because I love this. "Not today, you New World Order jackboot thugs." He doesn't say thugs, though. He says the other word. And the town's empty. He comes out. He's got guns. And he's wearing a gas mask, and he pulls it off. It's Nick Offerman. I was so excited to see Nick Offerman. I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. He's like the perfect guy for this role, right? And so now we see him getting supplies, gasoline, goes to the hardware store to get all kinds of things, natural gas, wine. He has an industrial generator to keep his house going. So we go through his day as he's building traps. He booby traps the shit out of his compound. And then he's smoking meat, and he sits down to have what looks to be a fantastic meal. And he's alerted by a buzz, and he turns a monitor on, and he sees it's a shambler coming through the property, and it trips a wire, and boom, shotgun to the head. And he's kind of funny, kind of chuckles to himself. He's like, it doesn't get old. So now we go 4 years into the future. And something has triggered an alarm. Someone has fallen into one of his pit traps. And there's a dude down there. And he's like, I'm not infected. He asks him if he's armed. He hesitates and says no. He's like, why did it take you so long? He's like, I was going to lie. I don't know why he was going to lie and say he's armed. Maybe to scare him off. But dude, if you think you're armed, he's going to gun you down. I don't think that's a good strategy, but whatever. He was part of a group of 10 people traveling from the Baltimore QZ, which is no more, which isn't surprising. His name is Frank. As he comes out, Bill. So this is Bill and Frank. This is the Bill and Frank we heard about in episode 1 and episode 2. This is the guys who set up the radio signal when it was playing Depeche Mode at the end of episode 1. Trouble. So Bill has one of those government virus detectors that you saw in episode 2 or episode 1 when the kid. And Frank reads clean. He's like, okay, now off with you, on your way. And Frank's like, I'm kind of starving. And they have a back and forth, in which Bill points out, he's like, if I let you in and give you food and then let you go, you're going to tell everybody else about this place. This isn't a free lunch. This isn't an Arby's. And then Frank jokes, well, Arby's was a restaurant. You had to pay. So, kind of funny line. Now, Bill does relinquish and lets Frank into this now quite fortified compound. He takes a shower and he sets some clothes out for him, and he makes him quite the meal of rabbit and wine. Obviously, everything's freshly grown. It looks delightful. And then Frank's like, well, I guess I'll go. But before, he's been looking at this piano. And he wants to play the piano. And Bill's kind of like, whoa, because he clearly has kept his, where he goes in the house limited to like the dining area, the kitchen, probably his survival room. It's a smaller world because a lot of the other rooms are just covered in dust. He just obviously doesn't have a use for them. And Frank pulls out some books, some music. He's like, this isn't you. And then he finds Linda Ronstadt. And he starts playing a long, long time. Then Bill's like, no, not that song. And then Bill plays the song. And they have a moment, and then you realize that they are about to move into... They're both very lonely and about to move into a different phase. Okay. It is what it is. Now, we move forward in time again. There's a bit of a scene here, and we're gonna jump forward in time. And it's 3 years later, and Frank and Bill are having an argument. Frank wants to, within Bill's compound, there are some stores. He wants to straighten things up, and he's like, not the stupid stores, the important ones, like the wine shop and things like that. And he's like, this is our home, and we're going to have friends over someday. And Bill's like, we don't have any friends. There are no friends. And Frank's like, well, that's funny because I was talking to a nice lady on the radio just the other day. And Bill's like, what? What? Because he's compromised, right? But so it turns out the nice lady is Tess. And we jump forward just a little bit here, and Joel and Tess, who I was happy to see Anna Torv back again. I know we're back in time, but I love her as an actress, and I was just very pleased to see her. Having dinner with Frank and Bill. And just kind of talking about, you're lucky you got us because there are bad people out there. Frank's really excited to show Tess some stuff, so he goes inside. And so now Joel and Frank are left out, or Joel and Bill are left outside talking about, the compound itself. He's like, it's quite fortified, but one day raiders will come. They will get past your defenses, and you're on your own out here. And Bill's like, we'll be fine. So they do talk about setting up, trading network. He can get him stuff for his fence, trading for, food or just the network in general, which you're trying to grow. So it's kind of a funny meeting. And it was useful. That actually moved the story along because you know who these characters are now. And this is where Frank gives Tess the code for the songs on the radio network. 60s are cool, 80s are trouble. So that's where that came from. Now we're more years into the future, another 3 years jump ahead. The wall around the city they've moved cars in to fortify the wall. So it's not just the fence in most areas. And they're out for a run. Frank has planted some strawberries. This is one of those, I guess, it's something that you don't have, so it has a lot more meaning to it. The strawberry is relevant because the strawberry was gone for them. And so they share a moment. Now they're asleep, and we're still in the same time period. And you see raiders approaching the compound in the night. They've got wire cutters, guns. They're ready to rock and roll because they want whatever's inside. Well, they set off one of the booby traps, and Bill's booby traps are quite awesome. The fence is electric and like deadly electric, not like I'm a little toasty electric. It's gonna cook you. And if the fence doesn't get you, the flamethrowers probably will. It's just everybody's going up in flames. Bill feels the need to go out there though and start shooting at these guys. And he's doing fine until Frank pops out and distracts him, and then he takes a shot to the gut. This scene didn't play out particularly well for me because there is probably no way that Bill would have survived this. Gut shots aren't good. And maybe it grazed him, but it didn't look like that. It looked like he had a bullet hole in his gut. And unless Frank has some secret medical knowledge that we didn't really see, then he's going to die. But it's okay. He's pouring alcohol on, trying to keep the wound clean and stay together. And Bill's like, get a hold of Joel. Get a hold of Joel. He'll protect you. Okay. So now we flash forward another 10 years. So we're now in the present. We are now in 2023 for all effects and purposes. And they're older. Now they've aged 10 years. And I think post-apocalyptic age is probably going to run a little harder than regular years. Although, looking at their life within the compound, it's really not bad. You do have dangers, of course, but overall, they are self-sufficient. They have a companion, and they're just kind of living their lives. All things being equal, it's almost an idealistic setting. So now we're 10 years in the future, though, and Bill survived through, I don't know how this happened. And Frank, though, it looks like he has cancer. He's taken up painting, and so there are lots of portraits of Bill and whatever around their house. But he's not doing great. Bill has to help him with a lot of things. They have dinner. He's got to take all his pills, and so he's not doing particularly well. And he stays up that night. He manages to pull himself over to his chair, and Bill wakes up. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "This is going to be my last day." He has made that choice, and he wants Bill to help him with it by crushing up some whatever narcotic and putting it in his wine, and he'll go to sleep. They're going to have a great last day, and then he's going to drink the wine and go to sleep, and that'll be it. Bill's very upset about this. He's not happy about it, but he decides to go through with this plan anyway. Saying that, and then so we go through their day together, and now we're at the meal, and I suspected this is what was going to happen. There's some major spoilers here. You see him pour. Yeah, they finish the meal. He pours it into Frank's wine glass, and Frank drinks it. And then Bill pours himself a glass and drinks the wine as well. And Frank says, "Were there pills in the bottle?" He's like, "Enough to kill a horse." And he asks him why. He's like, "Well, I'm been satisfied with this life," and he doesn't want to live without him. All right. So they drink their wine, they go to bed for the last time, and go to sleep. And now Joel and Ellie show up at the compound. Joel has the code to get in, so that's good. And he knows something's off immediately when he gets to the house, and the flowers in the front are dead. That's he's like, uh-oh. So they go in the house. Everything's unlocked. Ellie stays downstairs, kind of mucking around. Joel goes up to where he thinks they are, and the room is locked. He doesn't break down the door. Ellie's down there. She finds a letter and a key. It's addressed to Joel or whoever, but probably Joel, or to whoever, but probably Joel. And she's reading the letter, and which I think was kind of rude of her to open. It was meant for Joel, clearly. It had his name on it, but that's Ellie. Also, while she's mucking around, she finds a gun in a desk and puts it in her bag. Joel doesn't see this happen, but this will probably be significant at some point. He takes her down to the... they read the letter, which basically says they take whatever you need to. Bill jokes that he never really liked Frank, or he never really liked, Bill jokes that he never really liked Joel, but he considered him someone he trusted and respected and even considered a friend. That's Bill. It's kind of his gruff exterior. But the world needs men like him. Take whatever you need to protect Tess. Ellie can't read that. Joel takes the letter outside, kind of has a quiet moment. Then he goes down in the basement to the survival room, and Ellie is marveled at all the things. And then they go into the shed. He's looking. There's a car there, and there's no battery in it. He's like, oh. Then he looks at the refrigerator, opens it up, and Bill has the things that he needs to make a battery. So it's not going to go bad, unlike a car battery, which is going to die. So again, Bill comes through. They both take showers, get cleaned up. Ellie finds a box of clothes. Joel puts on fresh things, and this is another moment that I liked. So Joel again wants to look at Ellie's arm, make sure she's okay. She is. He's like, I've got a brother in Wyoming who used to be part of the Fireflies. He probably knows where this doctor, the medical people are who are trying to fix this. You can come with me, but you have to do what I say. We're going to keep your arm a secret. The basically ground rules, and Ellie acknowledges. They get in the car, and she's never ridden in a car before. Again, I thought this part of the show was good. She's never ridden in a car. It's like magic to her. She's like it's like a spaceship. They put in the tape in the tape deck, and of course it's Linda Ronstadt's "Long, Long Time." We go back to that song again, and they're off. They're off to see what's to try to get to Joel's brother and find the medical folks along the way, and thus their adventure is really beginning. Okay, that's the episode stuff. Now I want to talk about the things that are making people crazy. There obviously the Frank and Bill relationship. I'm gonna make this statement. Had this been a man and a woman and wasted this much time of an episode, I'd feel exactly the same way about it. This was unnecessary. You could have cut 40 minutes or more out of this episode, gotten exactly the key plot points you needed to. You don't need this in-depth look at this relationship, which ultimately ends. You simply don't need it. You could have had the beginning. You could have done montage. That would have been fine. And they're old. He's going to kill himself. Know your audience. This is not what the vast majority of the people who watch this show want to see. Simply isn't. There's some small minority who are going to say, oh, the relationship. I guess that's not why I watch a show like this. The Walking Dead didn't spend a lot of time on episodes of this nature. It's because HBO has the time to do this. On regular network, you couldn't have done this because you're limited to that hour. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. This was almost a movie-length episode that had, again, 20 minutes of things that mattered. And that long on the relationship of Bill and Frank was unneeded. Also, some will find their end romantic. Romeo and Juliet wasn't a romance; it was a tragedy. Because I am not for the intentional termination of life. Yes, Frank was suffering. Suffering is part of life. He probably didn't have a whole lot of time left anyway. If everyone who suffered chose this path, what kind of horrible, society are we? I mean, they are doing things like this in other countries. He didn't have tons of time left anyway. Is he suffering? Yes. So life is suffering. Suffering is life. They had a nice place. He would have, a week, 2 weeks, hung on and died a natural death. And then Bill would have been sad, but he could have carried on and still been helpful to other people. So that was a bigger hang-up for me than the unnecessary 40 minutes of relationship. That's my take on it. I know there are people out there who are going to disagree. Well, you want people to suffer? No, I don't want people to suffer, but I also don't want people to kill themselves. Again, people suffer for a myriad of reasons all the time, and I'm not for. This was essentially suicide. I don't believe in that. So you can beat me up in the comments about that. HBO with this episode has taken a very risky step. The viewers who are kind of hanging on, you may have lost. I know it's already been renewed for a season 2. I guess we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to continue to watch the show. I liked episodes 1 and 2 a lot, and I liked the beginning and end of this episode just fine. But you can't waste the audience's time on things like this. So that's my take on this, what is almost assuredly going to be an incredibly controversial episode. So anyway, That's it for now. This has been Roman of the Empire signing off. Please like and subscribe, and I'm really interested in hearing your comments about this episode. Be kind.
You